talking about Coates is important because I think like this, the fact that he's respected by Obama world and this kind of thing makes these quotes that he gave to New York Magazine even more important. He said, "I have a deep-seated fear that the black struggle will ultimately at its root really just be about narrow blacks' interests. And I don't think that it is in the tradition of what our most celebrated thinkers have told the world. I don't think that's how Martin Luther King thought about the black struggle. I don't think that's how Du Bois thought about the black struggle. I know that's not how Baldwin thought about the black struggle. Should it turn out that we have our first black woman president and our first South Asian president, and we continue to export 2,000-pound bombs to perpetrate a genocide in defense of a state that is practicing apartheid, I won't be able to just sit here and shake my head and say, well, that is unfortunate. I'm going to do what I can in the time that remains and the writing that I have to not allow that to be, because it is existential death for the black struggle and for black people as far as I'm concerned." To have Ta-Nehisi Coates say that publicly about Kamala Harris in particular, to say that any kind of continuing support in the same vein for this genocide is an anathema to the black struggle in this country and calling out her identity in that regard is very useful. And I thank Ta-Nehisi Coates for being forthright about it, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of this stuff, this inclusion of more critical media in places like New York Times, places like New York Magazine against Israel is a sign that they're also worried about what continuing to be a mouthpiece for Israeli and U.S. propaganda will do to the legitimacy of their magazines in the future, right? Like some of this is just a pure financial calculation, because these stories, like these ideas that Ta-Nehisi Coates are expressing now, they've been out there not just in academia, not just in writings from Black radicals for decades now. Nelson Mandela was talking about Palestine when he was still alive, when he was in South Africa, but they're now become mainstream viral posts on social media. This is where like the next generation is getting their news from, and it's what they're respecting. And now, and I think we've seen distrust in mainstream media sources. Trust in mainstream media sources went up, at least amongst liberals, when Trump was first elected. But I think this particular divide between what liberals are seeing and what like younger, particularly left-leaning liberals are seeing on their social media feeds versus what they see in the New York Times would be a death knell to a lot of these outlets. And so some of them are trying to thread the needle on a lot of things, like walk the line and pretend to represent both sides of the issue like they do on many things, while a lot of them are slowly dipping their toes into the tepid waters of disaggregating their brand from just posting Israeli propaganda. And I applaud them for that because it's necessary, but I think it's more of a, the tail wagging dog on this one. Like they're coming last. Yeah. They're the last ones on this. And so it's good, but I don't think they would be doing this if the rest of the country, especially young people, weren't already out there on social media building entire brands around criticizing Israel and criticizing them for supporting Israel.
Yeah, they're responding to the polling more than the Democrats are.
Yes, right. But right, exactly.
You're not captive.
Right.
You're not captive for the New York Times. You're not captive to be a Ta-Nehisi Coates reader. Like
yeah,
you
it's
can
not
just,
lesser evil reading.
But Coates is saying he's been working with and reaching out to Rashid Khalidi, and that he felt, I mean,
that's the only way for him to have like maintained credibility. Is this there's no other way to do it?
But if we're getting a Rashid Khalidi to Ta-Nehisi Coates to liberal pipeline thought kind of human centipede on this situation, I'm happy.
It's a highway. That's an enlightenment highway.
Exactly.
I didn't mean to invoke such a disgusting metaphor for it, but you know what I mean.
And I'm not trying to throw shade on Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm sure being in that Obama world, being like the Lin-Manuel Miranda of like Black critical thought during the Obama era it was probably very seducing, and it makes you not want to look too far outside of that kind of Black Panther by Marvel type of like critical analysis, because it turns people off, especially like in the post-Obama like Trump era. But good on him for moving a little bit further towards what like the tradition that he has been referencing this whole time, has been saying this entire time.
Yeah. And people can evolve on that front. So I'm taking it. Of course.
You should. Everyone should.
I'm running with my optimism where I can get it.
Hi, folks. Hey, you've heard me criticize how the mainstream media across the political spectrum either fails to report on important stories or prioritizes their own bias over balanced and comprehensive news coverage. Well, that's why I use Ground News as a solution on a daily basis. Longtime sponsors gather related news and add important context so you can understand how each outlet reports on it and maybe sometimes skews the facts. This, and being so close to the presidential election, you're going to see rhetoric against Harris and Tim Walz is only going to intensify. So I can't recommend enough that you check out Ground News's election page. My Vantage plan gets me access to their election-focused blind spot feed and diverse perspectives on each candidate so I can find the truth on who they really are, not just hear the loudest, most biased opinions. And areas where, frankly, the left or the right is not covering. For each story you read on their platform, you're going to find article Ground News found reporting on it, as well as tags to the next source indicating if they're independently owned or not, how credible their reporting is, and if they have any political bias one way or another, making it really easy to critically analyze different perspectives and come to your own conclusions. Their mission aligns so much with what we try to do on this show. We try and make you more media literate. So I can't recommend enough going to ground.news/majority or scanning my QR code to subscribe. Ground News is independent and subscriber supported. My viewers, however, will save 40% on the same Vantage plan that I use for unlimited access to all their features on a daily basis. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.